Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, September 12th, and this is the AgYield War Room. I'm Dan Dempsey, and I'll be moderating today's session. As always, if you've got any questions or comments, please feel free to drop us a line in the chat area, and we'll be sure to get to it during the show. Quickly here, overnight markets had December corn up 3.25 at 408. November soybeans were up 6 at 1006.5, and December Chicago wheat was up 8.5 at 587.75. This morning, we had an export sales announcement from the USDA, 118,626 thousand metric tons of corn to unknown. That was for 24. Weekly export sales were also out this morning for corn. Pretty disappointing. 666,500 for new crop. The low end of the estimates were looking for 700. Soybeans, on the other hand, were solid again this week. 1,474,000 for 24, which would have been up the upper end of the estimates there. Wheat sales fell in line with estimates, 474,900, and meal sales were sort of at the lower end of the range, 279,000 for 24. Good morning, fellas. We got a busy day here. We're going to have USDA report out at 11. We'll also have a bonus war room at 11:15 with our reactions and thoughts. So be sure to tune in at 11:15 Central. As we were coming on this morning, there was a news flash about some disruptions over in Ukraine and Russia relative to a grain vessel. I know, Dustin, the news is still fresh, but maybe talk a bit about that for a second, and then give us a few thoughts as we head into the report and throw it around the room.
Yeah. Actually, Jason just had mentioned it this morning. I hadn't even seen it, and it looks like it's a relatively recent thing. I mean, there's no news stories out even on it. It's on Twitter. Our one of our news services had come across the wire. Zelensky had reported a missile attack, Russian missile attack on a civilian grain vessel carrying grain to Egypt, and it was outside of Ukrainian waters. So that might have been a little bit of an escalation, kind of popped the market this morning in the overnight markets. The other thing is we have this report out this afternoon. Obviously, like you mentioned, we've had kind of an out trade on what CONAB's been saying versus the USDA for a while. So CONAB this morning again reported that final corn production for 23 was only 115.72, and the USDA is still written at 122. So big difference in total supply, global supply, if that's the case, if CONAB's more accurate than the USDA has been recording. So when you take those numbers out and you take Chinese stocks out, we've got a pretty big, deficit globally still on corn to eventually get through. We've had really strong exports, mainly going to just Mexico. But, long term, we need to continue to see the world grow decent sized corn crops at the rate that we're carrying grain outside of China. So just something to keep in mind.
That's good. Jace, maybe a few thoughts, just things that you're looking at, key numbers, and what you're going to focus solely on here for the report.
Yeah, well, kind of going back to that wheat idea, right? Wheat's been on a really good rally, probably acting better than corn and beans, both. So you got new crop wheat prices at $1.75 over new crop corn. I was just kind of looking at last year at this time of year, right? We were like $1.10, $1.20 in the fall when a lot of planting decisions are being made after harvest if we're going to plant wheat or not. So you got a bigger premium going into this year, especially if wheat prices hold or if this escalation in the Black Sea region or something like that really gets wheat going. It should be supportive of new crop corn, I would think. Especially since just flat price is much lower than last year, and high input cost. If you're debating on switching to some wheat acres, obviously higher prices or a nice wheat rally might influence some crop makeups for going into 25. So something to keep an eye on for sure. This report, I don't have a real strong opinion about it. I don't see where they're going to have a lot of fresh data to make massive changes in yield. My thought is bean yield should come down somewhat from just anecdotal evidence of hearing from some early beans coming out, just the drier finish. I would expect it's going to be hard to hit that kind of record bean yield number. Obviously we've heard really good corn yields, the early stuff coming out. So, yeah, just something to keep an eye on. Obviously, any big shift in yield is going to set the direction for the next month until we get into the next report.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Some anecdotal stuff. We got, Northern Illinois starting to nose in here in the last couple of days. One thing to note, it was drying down pretty quick. Some 277, 280 type numbers coming out of Northwest Illinois, 22.5% moisture. So drying down pretty quick. So I think guys this thing could, with the forecast that we've got, it looks pretty clear. We're going to get rocking and rolling pretty good.
Yeah, you're going to want to get after it with a drying down like that, I would think. You don't want it to get too low. Phantom yield loss from, a lot of growers I talk to that I respect, they all agree it's a real issue. You can lose a lot of yield with that. So if it's starting to dry down quick, I imagine we'll start rolling pretty aggressive. Which
is good. I think everybody's excited. We talked about this crop for long enough now. Let's go see what we've got, and start getting at least some real tangible data that we can argue about, right? Mm-hmm. Dustin, I thought you made an interesting point last night in your commentaries. I was looking at, elevators clogged up as just as we're even starting to get into harvest. Maybe highlighted by the fact that we still got a big abundance of old crop that's sitting there. Is that kind of your take?
Yeah, well, no, it's we've heard directly from growers that they said we can't take any more new crop corn until late September. So they had, I think, it's another 2 weeks of they want only old crop corn moving and no new crop coming to them. So this is down in Central Illinois. So I think that's that's reflective of the fact that we're getting deliveries at full carry. It's reflective of the cash carry first half to second half September we've seen in so many locations. We definitely carried a fairly sizable crop from last year into this year. We knew this on that June 1st stocks report. It was reported June 28th. And, the WASDE numbers you're going to see posted today are going to show well sub of a 2 billion bushel carry in from last year, just because we had, we had such good demand, really good export flow in that time frame. Just good demand all around, and we had low prices. So I wouldn't necessarily doubt that, but it doesn't really feel that way. Maybe because the grain's concentrated in the east more than the west. But it doesn't feel like it's a sub 2 billion bushel carry out still. I mean, like, this is a pretty good sized cash carry, coming out of old crop into new crop. So we'll see what they report in September. Today's report's just going to probably reflect those strong demand numbers all the way through. We won't get the September stocks number until the end of this month. And then if that number comes in, higher, like the June report did, then they'll go back and they'll revise all the balance sheets. We have a little bit of loss of faith in that whole process. I mean, they started, a couple of years ago, we saw a massive revision on that September stocks number in January, right? So it's not like it's even when we get the September number, that still could change in the end. We saw it change a long time after, back in 2021 from the 2020 September report, which would have been the 19-year. But still, everyone's going to be trading that as the number, as the data. So I would just kind of keep in mind, we're looking at this big of a carry. Whatever they report for a number today, you might have some extra risk at the very end of this month if they come back and revise that from counting too many stocks.
Yeah, we always play the game, and I know that it's a fool's game, but average estimates are 53.2 and 182.4 on the yield side. I know we'll be looking at total production, but what's a needle mover in your guys' opinion, Dustin? I mean, what's gonna, I guess, flip us either way? We still have a fun short position, so let's keep that in mind as well. So, what's going to entice them to get maybe a little bit more neutral than they have?
That's a hard one. I mean, it's usually you look at the range of guesses and you kind of pick the low end of the guess and surpass that. Mm-hmm. So low end of the guess for corn is 180.5. mean, if we finalize at a 180, I really just don't think there's a reason for the USDA to change their number that dramatically when we're just getting into the early harvest today. But if for some reason they're going to finish out at a 180 at the very end of the year, like, yeah, things kind of they tighten up pretty quickly at the number of acres we had for corn. And especially if you go take Brazil's CONAB number today, for example, and then, you know, we look at the global balance sheet and just say, well, China's not an exporter of corn anyway. They say they're not going to import much more corn, right? They've been advised by their country, you know, by their Ministry of Ag not to, but they're not going to be an exporter of corn. So you take China and just kind of wipe away that as part of the balance sheet and just say, well, U.S. only gets 180 at this acreage and Brazil's down another 7 million from what we've been reporting, or 6 million. Now all of a sudden we're at a fairly tight stocks to use where we need South America to have another good growing season this winter. So you might get some of that weather risk premium built back into the market again for those future months. I'm not really, you know, right now what my focus is not really all the bullish things that could happen down the road. It's like, what's the cash crunch and the supply logistical problem that's going to happen in the next 20, you know, to 40 days. If we're just getting hot and heavy on harvest and it's drying down quick, where's all this corn going to go? We've heard reports of baggage shortages in some cases, like where people can't get all the bags that they want to get, or they're having a tough time getting them. That's a huge expectation out there, and anecdotally, it fits with what we're hearing from our client base in Iowa and Illinois as well.
Oh, very good. Good morning to our friends at AgBull Media. Thanks for tuning in every morning. It's nice to see you folks. We're coming into the open here in a couple minutes, Ryland. We've got yesterday a pretty active trade in the South. You know, nothing really materialized much in the North, and it was nice to see hogs finally catch a bid. So, what's on your mind this morning?
Yeah, you know, the futures were a little bit firmer despite lower cash, both in hogs and cattle. So we did see about a little 180 to 181 trade. I actually think this is a little disappointing, but I kind of feel like everybody's been so cautious just because we've been trending lower. But, you know, it's about steady to a buck lower, you know, in the South. And then we did see a little bit of trade at 291, but that's likely to start picking up to a larger degree just between today, tomorrow. So we'll be watching that. I don't think the USDA at this point is going to make any major revisions. Maybe a couple revisions to production estimates. I think that's what the market's expecting, but nothing major that would sway things. It just kind of feels like feeder market's going to be eyeballing the action in corn. So there could be a little bit more added risk here today, maybe a little bit more volatility, but we did actually close October feeders back over the 20-day moving average. So, I mean, it's been a kind of a tough play to try to keep that price above that level lately, especially as cash prices continue to erode. So still kind of watching that number, watching corn prices today, going to see what kind of impact that has overall on the market. On the hog side, same thing, lower cash prices. We're down to 177.25. It's down to $1.09. Open interest was up. We actually kind of stopped the bleeding a little bit. So we put a band-aid on this thing, and we'll see if we can get maybe a little bit more follow-through support. But right now you got a little bit of a premium here, and I think a little bit better expectation in the futures than what kind of cash and cutout has kind of showed us. On the export side of the market, I think the real standout was really just in the pork net sales, 29,700 metric tons for 2024. That was up 43% from the previous week, 15% from the 4-week average. So a little bit better news on that front. Maybe we could see a little bit of follow through today here, but obviously the trend in cash and cutout is lower. Probably going to stay that way pretty much between now and the end of the year. So unless there's some major shocks here, you know, it's just good to be cautious in this environment just because of the threat of lower prices. Just kind of, it's elevated just over the next 3 months.
Oh, very good. Appreciate the update there. And just a couple of things to point out again here. As I mentioned earlier, USDA report will be out at 11 o'clock Central. We will be on with a bonus War Room edition with our thoughts and the reactions to the report at 11:15. So be sure to tune in and see what that report had to offer. Also, tomorrow will be Fun Fact Friday, so please tune in. You never know what you're going to get from Brian Williams there in Fun Fact Friday. Just coming into the open of the markets here, December corn is up 3 1/4 at 407 3/4 is the last. November soybeans are up 4 3/4 at 10.05. and December Chicago wheat is up 9 at 588 1/4. On a daily basis, we appreciate all those folks that tune in. If you love the show as much as we love putting it on, throw us a like or subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything to do so, and certainly helps us. So once again, we appreciate all our viewers that take the time to watch us every morning. Every morning that the markets are open, we're streaming live on X, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, 8:15 Central Time. Appreciate the thoughts and comments here this morning, guys. It was a good conversation. We'll be back at 11:15. Hope everybody has a good start to their morning, and we'll talk to you here in a little bit. Thanks.
The War Room is proudly presented by AgYield. For over 50 years, the AgYield team has provided grain marketing and risk management solutions for growers across the country. Our veteran consultants harness cutting-edge technologies to pinpoint risk, optimize market performance, and protect your farm's profitability. Discover a new approach to farm revenue management at agyield.com.
Hey guys, Jack here. Be sure to support the show by hitting the like button, leaving us a comment, and subscribing to the channel for all the latest updates. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.